My oldest boy told me about this when we were drinking beers together in his backyard. I have no idea if this happened to him or not, but it makes for a great ghost story, so I'm telling it to you. One night, he said, he was awakened by loud thumping coming from outside the house. When he got up to investigate, he found his two little boys standing next to the windowsill watching something outside. They wanted to know why the girl across the street was walking in circles and occasionally spinning around on the sidewalk. My son went to the window and peeked out, and that's when he saw her. This girl was dressed in nothing but a Victorian nightgown, white and flowing. He was on the second floor, so when he leaned out to try to see better, he could see that she was only about 6 feet away from his back window. Then she stopped walking and walked backwards slowly. She looked right at him, nodded her head slightly, as if in greeting, and then she vanished. He woke his wife and told her to come look. She also saw the girl standing directly across the street in the darkness, and then she, too, disappeared. A couple of weeks later, he said he woke up again in the middle of the night and heard heavy footsteps near his bed. Both he and his wife could feel the vibrations, even though the footsteps were not coming from the room they were in. Then suddenly he felt the bed shake violently, but not the room. As he strained to listen, the shaking of the bed stopped, and then he felt a cold spot right on top of him, as if she were standing right on the bed. But when he opened his eyes, there was nothing there. 4 days! He and his wife argued about whether she had been in the room or not because he could feel the cold spot every night, and he could even feel her sitting on the edge of the bed, as if she were physically there. After a week or so, the shaking, the cold spots, and the footsteps all stopped. Then one day, while driving his son to school, he drove past that house and looked across the street to where the girl's house should have been and realized that there was no house there. That particular intersection was notorious for accidents, so perhaps she had been a victim. So he did what any logical father would do. He took his kid back to the exact location, and sure enough, there was a brand new house in the place where the other one had stood. However, the address was completely different than the one across the street. To this day, he swears he can still feel that cold spot in his bed. Is it possible that the girl moved to the same address, but in a different time zone? Or is she waiting for her family to come back from the dead? I grew up on horror movies and ghost stories, and one movie I used to watch over and over was The Changeling. George C. Scott plays a man who moves into an old house. He has written a beautiful symphony that won't be played for years, and he has losing his mind. His girlfriend is driven crazy and possibly murdered by a ghostly presence in the house, and he finds the bones of a child in the organ room. If you've never seen the film, Google it, it's awesome. The real version is that the house still stands and is known as the Capilano House. People report hearing music and piano playing that cannot be seen, footsteps, whistles, and disembodied voices, along with regular paranormal activities such as faces peering through windows and objects moving on their own. One of my best friends tells this story about his childhood. We were sitting on the porch of his cabin. We'd had a great Thanksgiving dinner, and I was helping him clean up. His dad, Papa, had passed away earlier that year, and his mom, Mama, was staying with him while she figured out what to do next. She ain't right since Daddy died, he says, nodding towards the closed door, while cleaning dishes at the sink. He tells me this. Back when he was a kid, he says his father always told him that if he was ever outside the house and the hair on the back of his neck stood on end, to run inside and lock the doors. Always said there were evil spirits out there, and he didn't want his boy to get caught outside when they were out roaming. One time when he was young and out playing with his brother, the hair on the back of his neck suddenly stood on end. So he started running for the house. But when he turned to look back, he saw his brother standing there, motioning for him to stop. But the moment he stopped, the hair on the back of his neck began to stand on end again. So he started running. This kept happening, back and forth, the warning, feeling, and his brother's beckoning. Then when he finally got inside the house, Mama came to the door with a shotgun and asked if everything was okay. He told her about the feeling and how his brother was beckoning to him and told her to come see. But when she stepped outside, nothing was there. Mama just shook her head and said that she knew what had happened, said it was just his daddy checking to see if he was paying attention. She also said she wasn't afraid of ghosts. Only fools and children are afraid of ghosts, she says, because they are the ones that see them. He says that that's when he decided that he was ungoing to tell anyone else about seeing those things. He knew that most people wouldn't believe him, and some would laugh. It was early 1980, and I was stationed on an Air Force base in eastern New Mexico. A buddy of mine was visiting, and we'd gotten into town late and drunk. I convinced him to stay at my bachelor officer's quarters instead of getting a hotel room. Around 4 a.m., we were both awoken in separate bedrooms by screaming and shouting. I thought it was just another drunken party in the hole. Then I heard what sounded like hail for about 10 minutes, followed by heavy footsteps near my front door. Now, if you've ever lived in the dorms in basic training, you probably remember that each room has a big metal door with a flimsy wooden door on the inside. Well, I got up and walked into the hallway to see if the commotion had stopped, and I heard what sounded like heavy footsteps immediately outside my door. I swear this isn't made up. I put my ear to the door and heard what sounded like heavy footsteps retreating away from my room. And then I distinctly heard what sounded like hail again. Thinking that it may be some sort of prank, I opened the door and stepped out into the hallway, and there was absolutely nothing there. I shut the door and went back to bed. The next morning, I told my buddy about the noise during the night, and he told me that he had experienced the same thing. Also, weird dreams. We didn't talk much about it, and we chalked it up to the fact that the base had recently been used as a holding facility for prisoners being transferred to another base. About 10 years later, I talked to an old supervisor of mine and mentioned a strange incident. He told me that he'd experienced the same thing at the same place. He also told me that the local residents claimed that the base was built on an ancient burial ground and that's why all the strange happenings occurred there. All right, guys, that's all the ghost stories I have for tonight. I hope you enjoyed them. If you did, please consider giving this video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.